2, 1. Lust for Life.
Or How to Thread the Needle and Come Out the Other Side to Tell the Story.
Yeah, I was going to say the full title, Lust for Life or How to Thread the Needle and Come Out the Other Side to Tell the Story by Courting. We're probably just going to refer to it as Lust for Life for the majority of us discussing it.
Speak for yourself.
That's pretty wordy, I think, all things considered, which makes sense for Courting specifically, since Courting is a British kind of electronic pop rock fusion. There's a lot going on there. Kind of this electric pop fusion kind of band. They kind of border on indie rock at the same time. Very experimental, very kind of an art punk, post-punk feel through the whole thing. This is going to be their most recent releasing since 2023, where they dropped New Last Name. I personally was a big fan of New Last Name. It was the reason that I really wanted to go over this album, because New Last Name was really creative, kind of very much in that same idea of being a rock pop album, fusion album with kind of its own very unique characteristics that Courting throws into it. And this was a follow-up. They actually released this album, kind of suggested that this is part 2 of a trilogy, meaning it was going to be kind of closely tied in with New Last Name, which I was a big fan of. So this was an exciting project that I was kind of like ecstatic to get into in the first place. I really wanted to see what the follow-up to New Last Name was, and honestly, it left me not disappointed. I was a fan of New Last Name and the way that it rolled into Lust for Life. I thought went famously, and we'll go into it in a little bit more detail here shortly. But Mel, Bob, any opening things that you felt about the album?
What do you think, Mel?
I thought they're like a grungier 1975. Like, this is like a cracked out Maddie Healy, and I'm so here for it. Well, Maddie Healy is a cracked out Maddie Healy, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like an even dirtier Maddie Healy. Yeah, I've been like pretty into Courting lately. Like, I recently discovered them. I don't even understand how. Like, it just popped up on my Spotify, I think, like recommended, probably because of everything Brandito's been having us listen to. But I was like really appreciative of it, and I actually originally had one of their tracks like on our singles list, not realizing we were covering the album, because I was like, "Ooh, I really like them. I want to talk about them." So yeah, I'm excited.
Which was the single again? Which
Namsi?
Namsi. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, we're gonna go.
So we get to talk about it still.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Courting is brand new to me, so this was an exciting listen. I had no idea what to expect, and after listening to it twice, I still don't know what to expect from Courting, and I think that's I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing yet, but we're going to dive into that. So
100%. So it starts off with this really interesting violin intro that on rollback intro. It's only like a 40-second track. The actual whole album, I will say, is only about 25 minutes long. Like, it's very approachable. Like, if you want to just walk into it, and it was really pleasant to get, you know, an artist that didn't take themselves so seriously that everything they recorded maybe needed to make it onto an album. Yeah. Which we've covered a couple of albums where it's like, yeah, this has happened. And we're actually going to talk about another album where I feel like that artist just shoehorned extra content into it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to rollback intro, it was just kind of a really neat, like I said, that violin intro to the album, which set a scene that I don't really know is a scene that continues to perform all the way throughout the whole album. It does kind of feel a little bit disjointed, but we're going to take a quick listen and you can hear exactly what I'm talking about. So if you listen to that, understand the rest of the album has nothing to do with that.
Well, actually, yeah.
The outro, the ending song,
Kind of
is
a little
the same.
bit.
It's the same thing, just
Well,
deconstructed.
Yeah, as the last song of the album, which we'll get to, Likely Place for Them to Be, starts off the exact same way, except with a guitar instead of
Yes,
there, which is kind of cool.
But also, again, if you heard that only and you're like, I don't know where this is gonna go, guess what? You're right.
You still don't know,
It's you think you know chording, and they're like, well, no, like that was just something we did for 40 seconds.
Yeah.
To open everything up. It's also called Rollback Intro, which Stealth Rollback is the second track. This is what it plays into. Also sounds nothing like that. Like, it doesn't even roll into it. Like, it actually just doesn't. It really doesn't intro into the song.
Yeah.
No, we go it takes a super left turn. It's like, what is happening?
It is very, very different from what aesthetically the rest of the album is, and with the exception of like you mentioned, just kind of the outro at the very end of it, which is an interesting thing to do.
It's if you listen to it by yourself, the Rollback Intro, I wrote down WT, what is this? Like, I had no idea what I was getting into with chording, and this was not a good start for me. But then again, listening to the entire album, then listening back, the outro of the album actually goes right into the intro of the album, which is kind of cool. That made me appreciate the first track a lot more.
For sure.
I figured that out. But
Agreed.
By itself, nah.
Yeah, like I even wrote down, I'm like, okay, this could be a really pleasant opening to the album, and then it just doesn't really have anything else to do with the rest of the album until the very end of it. You're like, oh, okay, well, that thematically, I guess, was a fun thing for you guys to do.
Yeah. Stealth Rollback going into that is, it doesn't make sense. But
for sure, because then you get into, this is Stealth Rollback track 2 on the album. A little bit more violin still.
Yeah.
The strings carry through.
Really do.
Kind of.
So, like, it goes into this, like, Prodigy-esque beat, like, glitch beat, very dystopian robot sounding.
Sorry.
What are you rocking out with there, Mel?
I was just trying to look at lyrics, and then the song started playing.
It's
Not
just,
bad.
it's very interesting. It goes from, like I said, that super caffeinated glitch sound into this kind of super simplified post-punk strings melody, which again also isn't going to tie in with the rest of the album. It feels when you move forward, it feels like they're trying to set the stage, but also you don't know what play you're gonna see. So it doesn't really matter. It could be literally anything moving forward. And then it turns out. They were like, so that was cool. Let's do the opposite for the remainder of the album. And
this song in particular feels the most disjointed on the album. Again, Rollback Intro, the first song really dives in, goes to the end of the album, but like this song, it's a lot of frenetic energy. There's a lot of very Prodigy like at the beginning of it, which it's not bad, it's not terrible, but there's so many different things going on in just this song alone. And again, listening to this song and the previous song the first time, I'm like, what is this? What is going on?
What are we about to get into?
That's
and then it ends up being it didn't matter because you would have figured it out.
That's like how I started to feel. I'm like, I know this isn't a fully instrumental album. What is going on? And then the crazy vocals, like, that are just, you have no idea what he's even saying at the end of it. It's like, okay, so at least we have lyrics now, but I can't understand them. What is going on?
Right. I was looking up lyrics and there's nothing online had any lyrics because no one else knows what they're saying either.
No one knew what to even put. Like,
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, like, because they also threw out that scream at the very end of this track,
Yeah.
which like just felt like, again, I kind of called it dystopian robot because like it's kind of the only way that I could like think of how to describe it.
I like
and
it.
then it like starts to make you think like, okay, so maybe this is going to be like a very chaotic album, like maybe there's going to be a lot of weird things going on, but then it ends up not necessarily being that. It's kind of the whole way through. So yeah, disjointed. This is the one that doesn't quite fit into the whole puzzle piece, other than again them kind of trying to tell the story, which I'm hoping Mel has some decent notes on how the lyrics and everything like that plays out, because outside of these first two tracks, I was a huge fan of the rest of the album. This was the low point. It opened up low for me personally.
Agree. I just didn't understand what we were doing. I was like, what is going on? This isn't what I wanted. And I'm just confused.
And a lot of the other songs actually do a whole bunch of different stuff too, but not in such a like chaotic and like disjointed way.
Yeah.
So the rest of them kind of flow and they feel more natural. This one, not great.
It was, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And since you guys are wondering what we're talking about, we'll start talking about Pause At You.
Here we go.
Because now we start getting into, like I said, the pop punk kind of like feel to it, the pop post punk, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Now's when they kind of started to include that and go back to the chording that I know from the previous album. So we'll play a little clip here.
Now we're talking.
I thought the chorus here was so clever. Yeah, I love like the cliche jabs at New York City. It kind of had me like cackling a little bit. Like I See You With a Glass Eye, I thought was like a really, really clever. Like I See You Sometimes With a Glass Eye was giving me the vibe of like this dude's like fucking drunk. He doesn't care who he's fucking. Like this, he's getting in with these prostitutes in New York City. Like I thought it was fun. I thought this was a bop.
Yeah, this song kicked for sure.
It was a really, really fun track. It kind of like borders onto that indie rock kind of like, especially like 2000s. I was getting like a lot of Franz Ferdinand, Modest Mouse kind of vibe to it, which was really nice, but still really unique. Like the vocals are still a little bit grittier than, a lot of those bands. Like the backtracks that they kind of integrate into it made it feel still like more rock than pop. But it kind of blends and kind of sits right on that ledge of it. And I thought that was like really well done. I loved the bass line throughout this whole thing. The bass line was just groovy.
Top
it
notch.
had some nice swing. And it was a complete juxtaposition from the last track.
Yeah.
I think is the craziest part. Like it was just the opposite of what you had heard for the last two tracks. So that's why I say like the last two tracks were downsides to me. Maybe
I agree.
In terms of how you construct the album or deconstruct the album, it sets the story pacing maybe a little bit more than the other ones, especially knowing that this is going to be part of a trilogy, so there's going to be another one after this.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it just this is where I got into this, and now we're talking. We're back, and I appreciated that part of it for sure, because I wasn't sure what we were going to end up with after the first two tracks.
I loved how like dirty this song made me feel. I don't know if anybody else got that, because it doesn't sound dirty. It's like, but like the content had me feeling so like gross and grungy and dirty, and I don't know, I liked it.
What about it?
I don't know. I guess maybe it's just like the street walking, the like, I don't know, this God, somebody stop me's. Like, it's just like, you're doing shit you shouldn't be doing. And like, you should feel ashamed for it.
I like
I don't know. That's how I took it. And I loved it. I thought this was such a vibe.
I didn't dive into the lyrics like that, but I was like, man, this song kicks, and I listened to it twice in a row because I was like, okay, this is good shit. And the album really started for me here, honestly, and thankfully it only took like what 3 minutes and 30 seconds of the first 2 songs to get here.
Exactly.
So, you know, it made it tolerable. You know,
the album only being 25 minutes long again is such a relief. It was a really nice like breath of fresh air, especially for like what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Going into Namsi, which is obviously one of their singles that they had released for it, we get just a little bit more of this kind of post-punk pop fusion feel kind of all the way through. So let's play a little bit of that.
Irish good so insane and played. We bought a house in the plains, started planning a long, long while ahead. You said to meet you there, but I got lost in the way. I was scratching at the holes in the gates, contacting, connecting trains. The last 2 seats to the mother said, I don't believe they're married and all, oh God, get me away from here, I'm dying. Give me a piece and let me cry. Lyrics for kissing, give me somewhere to hide. French exit, Irish goodbye.
today I learned that an Irish goodbye is also called a French exit. I didn't know those were the same thing. So
Turns out every culture just has a way of just fucking bailing.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt. But this was another just kind of fun post-punk track. Like it's great. It again, this one kind of like felt to me like a little bit more like The Strokes because it does have a little bit heavier guitar kind of going all the way through, like a very wet guitar that kind of just like makes it feel more rock than pop, but it still feels so poppy once it gets into the choruses and out of the verses. It's just really, really unique kind of sound. Like I don't know what else to say other than I really enjoy with it. I vibe with it. It's got a kind of that, like, again, that indie beat, but like heavier guitars, so it feels rocky, but then also the choruses are like, it feels like this weird, like, experimental is the only way you can describe it because it crosses on so many different things, right?
Yeah, experimental, but it's also got a little bit like the Strokes in there. It feels it's a fun song. You know what I mean? Like I like it. It was a good continuation of what they did in the third track, Pause at You. I liked it.
Yeah, I thought this was a cool continuation too of like the story. Like, I don't believe they're married at all. Like, it's just these 2 kids who are like in love, acting manically, like buying a house. Parents don't approve. Like, I just think it was, it's just, I'm here for the story. I'm having a good time. And I don't know, it sounded really cool.
After the first 2 tracks, it's just fun. This is I'm enjoying it musically. It's just fun. And I like putting that in my back pocket. It's different type of fun because it's also still good music as opposed to Chappell Rowan's new single. But
fuck you. Fuck off. You're just a hater. Ugh.
It's not even hate. I really respect Chappell Rowan. That's almost why it's more disappointing to me. Regardless, then we go right into the exact same feel with 11 Cent, which I also just kind of like the way that the track title rolls off the tongue. 11 Cent, like, just sounds. I enjoy it a lot. Let's give it a spin. Yeah, again, like, it's just kind of still rocking that indie rock pop. Like, it's right in between the two somehow. And what I really appreciated, this is when I started to like kind of like look at this album for being like even better, in my opinion, was because now we have heard 3 songs that are all like stylistically kind of similar,
Mhm.
but all super unique at the same time. Like
Yeah.
I don't like I could tell each of the songs apart from one another and also still know it's chording, and they do a really good job of kind of threading that needle of stylistically this is still who we are, but each track still has its own independence, which again we're going to cover another album where I feel like there's some redundancies in what some artists end up doing, and it ends up muddying kind of the water on all of the tracks because they all just sound so similar
Sure.
to things that already exist. This every single track is very unique, but very much stylistically still the band's music, and I like that about this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a strong entry for sure. The saxophone in the song is just
The
is
sax
chef's
track
kiss.
was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I love the sax. It really makes the song for me, honestly. There's some random violin at some points as well.
The strings on the breakdown, on
strings.
like
Yeah,
on the
I was
ways out, like,
obsessed with that.
yeah.
they're
Yeah.
so well placed in the track. This was
Mhm.
this was one of my favorite tracks off of the album. For sure.
Yeah, agreed.
There
Yeah.
was a really cool verse where he's talking about writing a joke on the back of a 6-pack, and he actually says it in like a prose style. Like, so he's like singing about in prose about writing. Like, I thought it was so well done and such like a cool touch. And yeah, I thought that was so cool. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another song I couldn't find lyrics for yet. I don't know why, but this one's way easier to hear them, but I was
Yeah,
sure.
there's not a lot out as far as like only certain songs I could find the actual lyrics for
What
and read
happens
it.
when we're listening to content so quickly
Yeah.
after it
Yeah.
gets done?
Yeah.
You know, what
Yeah.
can
Look
I
at
say?
us.
Like I had to actually like try to really listen. Like, what is he saying?
Then we go into After You, which it's way heavier almost instantly than kind of the rest of the tracks.
Yeah.
But then it still follows around that same formula of being this indie pop rock kind of vibe all the way through. You guys are going to hear it right now.
Yeah. A little bit of Franz Ferdinand in this song for me.
Yeah.
I mean, like it
Yeah.
kind of all has like dabbled in like all of these other little steps, but again, it's all very unique in its
Yeah.
own way at the same time, which again, like I don't have a whole lot more that I can say about everything because it's still stylistically is kind of the same as the other four songs.
Yeah.
Each one just sounds very like a unique take on what they want to do with their sound, and I think it's a really, really cool spot. I do like that this one was a little bit heavier. It gave it a little bit more, in my opinion, just again added another dimension to the whole album as a whole. There's a great rock solo that I enjoyed, that guitar, that kind of very alternative solo. I enjoyed a lot. Again, it fits with the rest of the album, but still manages to like be unique and different, and I enjoyed that personally a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that manic feeling continued. Like it's just for me, it's like a pretty steady theme throughout the entire album, which maybe is why the first two tracks were all over the place. Like they're just on a manic high doing whatever they want. But like I loved the line, if I had to be prescribed, well, perhaps you could have lied. Like they're just not like they're just not okay with like their mental illness. They're in denial. Like I don't know. I thought I could be reading too much into it, but that was fun.
Yeah, this is another solid track. These four songs, again, they all sound, kind of the same, but also they're all unique in their own way, and they've all got their own high points, I think. And this is another one that was solid. I love when they have them all in a row like this because I could just turn it on and just could listen back to back to back to back and not and just enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like there's absolutely nothing wrong with, again, once you get past the first two tracks, just letting this album play through, and it's like cool. Like I can just let this
digest
go
it
from start to finish, and enjoy every song. It still feels consistent. Like, it's still the vibe that you are gonna expect. You kind of know what you're gonna get out of the next song. Well,
but
when I
but
say
you don't
what
at the
you're
same
gonna
time.
get out of the next song,
next
I mean the next song that kind of is two songs. "Lust for Life," obviously the title track for the album, is just. I've got two clips. We're gonna play both clips because they're just. It feels like just two completely independent songs. Like, you know, when we covered like Squids and we covered Cowards. And there was a lot of times when it felt like the beginning of the song was very different from the end of the song, but you saw the path to get there.
Mm-hmm.
This song feels like you just switch songs mid-song. And it's very interesting. So I'm going to play the first part and then the second part afterwards, the later part, and tell me if you think this would even remotely be the same song if I wasn't telling you this is just one track.
Yeah.
Now I can see all the keratin. Tell me where the story ends. Yeah, 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 tell me where the story ends.
I loved this part.
And now this is also the same song.
Yep. Oh man. Yeah, about 4 minutes in, right? Give or take.
I got a job at the Good and Factory. I was retired in a week. Cause it was minimum wage and the pension didn't pay out half what it should have been.
It almost sounds like a different band. At
Like,
that
it's
point.
it's so different midway through. The first part of the song, I really love how they pace everything throughout the whole album. Like, because again, you always kind of feel like you're going to be kind of in a similar BPM throughout the whole thing, which is like kind of what makes it feel like you just press play after the first two tracks and just let it ride, and it doesn't shock you with anything new, but like doesn't all sound the same all the way through. I think it's really, really cool the way that it does that. I love in the first part, that strum change up, the strum pattern change up, just starts to give it like a little bit of energy from something that didn't have a whole lot of energy. But then it just completely switches into this kind of swingy rock and roll with indie like post-punk vocals over top of it on the second part of it. And yeah, it's two songs in one, and I like both.
Yeah.
And the story is dark. Like, listening, especially the second half, is like a full out, basically like murder ballad. And it's not giving that, like, in the instruments at all.
No.
Like, if you pay attention. So, what I thought was so cool in the first half, like, that tell me how the story ends. And then the ending for the second half is so abrupt with a gun to his head. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, what a cool tie. So like going back and listening to the first half, knowing how the second half ended, blew my brains out, like quite literally, because his brains were about to be blown out too. But like, yeah, just like she just pushes a gun to his temple and it cuts off. Like, what? That's how we're ending this song.
Yeah, the way this ends is crazy.
Yeah.
I thought it was so cool.
Because that's the thing. It also doesn't feel like the second song is finished.
No.
It just cuts out
just
at the
stops.
very end of it.
It just stops. We don't actually
Yeah.
know if he dies.
Yeah. Yeah, the instrumentals in the first part of this song are incredible. There's some deep bass. There's more brass going off that just ties in to the awesome guitar. Like I loved the instrumentals in this. Like I listened to this over and over again. Honestly,
Full disclosure, I was also stoned as fuck at this point. And the first half was so nice to my brain. I enjoyed it so much. I want the first half
Better
to
while high.
solo on to just listen on repeat because I was vibing.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my notes, I wrote, LOL, what is this change in the middle of the song? And then in all caps, I wrote, why does it just end like that?
The ending was
Like,
wild.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's not.
Yeah, same.
It's not just doing these things for no reason. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually doing them with intention and somehow pulling it off, I think,
Yeah.
is what's so crazy. And what I really appreciated about the album was it's doing all of this, but still in a way that sonically works for me. Like, it still, this would be something that a less talented band, I think, could really muck
Butcher.
up.
Butcher. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like, could really screw this up. Cording does it really, really tastefully, and I enjoy it because of that.
Yeah.
Then we go into, because it's such a short album, our final track, which is Likely Place for Them to Be, which kind of just goes back into that same indie rock, post-punk, pop, fusion thing that they've kind of been doing the whole time. So let's give it a quick little spin. This is like right up my alley in terms of indie rock and what I just really, really enjoy about all of it. I love how the guitars kind of actually go out of sync and like still like reposition themselves back in perfectly in sync. So you kind of need to like re-listen to it multiple times to be like, okay, am I hearing something wrong?
Yeah.
It does it so tastefully. It'll be, like 2 or 3 notes that just are out of place, out of nowhere, but then it all still just goes right back into sequence again properly, which I thought was really cool. A way more manic, I think, kind of track than the rest of the album, so it does kind of stand out a little bit that way. After the hard cutoff of the last track, though, going into this one, having a little bit more of a pace and that kind of that rhythm going through, and then that incessant rhythm kind of penetrating through everything, I think worked really well. Again, it feels disjointed, but after the hard cutoff, it almost feels like it was meant to be disjointed. It cut you off hard on the last one, and now you're going into this.
Just forensic energy, again. It works so well. The energy kind of matches a lot of what's in the rest of the album. I already mentioned this, but the end of the song goes right into the beginning of the album. Like, it's fantastic. I love that for me. It saved the first song of the album for me. The way it starts, again, is the same kind of rhythm, the same sound, except with the guitar. Great track. I like this a lot.
Yeah, I thought that this was like the first time I really was able to listen to a song and like actually pick up the way they're breaking down all the different instruments. And I feel like I can thank Brandito for that, because it's like I was actually so in tune to it, and I thought it was so well done. I finished this album actually feeling clinically insane, though. Everything happening, I was like, this was a wild trip. I don't know what to think right now. But I loved it. I loved feeling like that, but I felt like thrown off. Like I felt manic. But so I think it did its job.
I would say I think that was like specifically the intention of it. And again, at 25 minutes, like, it's one of those, like, it takes you all the way up, all the way back down, and kind of just leaves you there. And it's like, okay, look, that's done. Now we're done. And closes out with that manic kind of like outro. I think this was a really cool album, in my opinion. I thought it was neat. It's one that I want to have on my shelf. It's I was a pretty big fan. The biggest thing, like I said, is just the fact that it still has the identity of Courting without really feeling like it's the same thing over and over again throughout all of the tracks on it. I feel like experimentally they could have added another track, and I probably would have forgave them for it, and they could have done something that was way out there, way different. I do feel like it did still kind of fall into that indie, that 2000s indie rock pop kind of vibe, and stuck around in that area. But again, all the songs still sounded really unique, so I still appreciated the album, like, in spite of that. I just, knowing Courting, I was kind of hoping for just kind of like an additional kind of experimental, like more experimental, kind of like the first two tracks, to really feel like they tied in a little bit more, maybe somewhere throughout the album. But that's a pretty specific issue to have with it personally. That's
wanting more is a good thing, honestly. Yeah.
You're just being a nitpicky bitch.
Yeah, it's what we're supposed to do. We're critics.
No, I know.
That's right. Yeah, man, the replayability of this album was amazing. Like, this is the first album we've listened to as a podcast that I've like, I want to re-listen to this again. I want to hear it again, and the length of it lends itself to that so well. Like, it's only 25 minutes. I listened to it twice, and still only 2/3 of the length of The Weekend. You know what I mean? So like, it's oh man, it's. Yeah, I had no idea what to expect going in, and I still, like, I'm not sure what. I'm not sure I've completely digested everything I've listened to, even after the third listen this morning. But I know that I'm a brand new fan of Courting. Like, this is fantastic. I loved what they did. There were a couple blips of music here and there that were just noise to me, and a lot of it was in that second track that it feels disjointed and not. Like, that song is probably skippable for me. The rest is a fantastic journey. Yeah, this is fascinating for me. Exciting to listen to. I gave this album an 8.4 out of 10. This is a good one for me.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well,
I loved it. I thought it was an experience. Yeah, I will gladly be going back in. And even the second track, the intro I was okay with because it was only 40 seconds and it just does tie in. The second track, listening to it again, I will probably skip it, like you said, but I appreciate it because it added to that manic vibe happening throughout the entire. So as a whole, I get it. I'm okay with it being in there. Just like,
Agreed.
I won't listen to it probably on a regular basis. I'm in. I gave it an 8.8. Loved it. Well, Lust for Life alone, I thought was
agreed
a masterpiece. I was like, this is such a highlight for me.
It was a 9.5 out of 10 for me, that song itself.
Easy. I loved it.
Yeah, for myself, again, it does kind of fall back into like the indie rock pop kind of trope, kind of consistently all the way through, which I don't know if it does anything that's like crazy different from everybody else. It's obviously, like I said, it's unique. It's got their signature on everything, but it's still just, it did kind of blend in. If you were to give me, 10, 20 tracks from the 2000s, I would be able to pick out Courting, but it would still make sense with all of the other tracks that kind of came out around that time too. You know what I mean? Like, it's still unique. I still can understand that it's Courting, but it does fall into kind of that same categorization all the way throughout too. Part of their own sound and identity means also being a part of the genre sound and identity kind of at the same time.
Sure.
But either way, the nice thing is I do want to listen. What I need to do is I do want to listen through their the last album with this one, New Last Name.
Yeah.
Because if they're saying that this is a trilogy, it means that there's one more coming up, and I kind of want to just go front to back with the whole trilogy and just like understand where New Last Name and all the things that I appreciate about it, how they tie in and collect with Lust for Life, and kind of go from there. But altogether, this was a really well put together album. I think the things were put in the right places, like with intention, and I think that is something that artists have had a really tough time doing in the last little bit, especially if you're dabbling into that pop kind of area. For me, this was a 7.9.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lower than I thought you were gonna give it.
Like I said, it still has the same kind of charms as a lot of other music, and the charms didn't come from a brand new place. That I wish that there was, like I said, another experimental track would have been really nice. Like that's just something else to be like, this is a very individualistic you guys part of it, where this blended into a little bit of other stuff that's kind of already been put out there, in my opinion. But still good.
I think that's where my inexperience with music in general, like you listen to so much more modern music than I have. I think that for me, this was absolutely unique and absolutely not anything like anything I've ever heard before. When it's put together in a package. So
Also
for me, it was far more unique, but go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of on the same page as you with that. Yeah. Also, I don't think an album necessarily needs to be completely unique for me to judge it high. Like, if I'm going to listen to it and continue to love it, yeah, fuck it, I'm up. I'm
and
there.
I think the important thing is that it is still unique. Just it's still very stylistically falls into similar styles of other people. It's not necessarily a groundbreaking album. Yeah. If that kind of makes sense. It's good and it is unique again, but it's not groundbreaking at the same time. Sure. It's not something that I would be like, this is going to change the industry. No, like it's already kind of been done before. This was a very different take on it, and I like that.
You're gonna get the vinyl?
Probably.
And you're still rating it that low?
Yeah.
He has a lot of vinyls. Yeah.
Fair.
This is one that I think, like I said, but it's also just sonically very enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's just regardless, I could put this on and I think anybody could sit down on the couch and listen to this. This could play in the background for me. It could play as something that I'm hyper analyzing. It's a very approachable album because of that, and I think that's why I still want it on my shelves, regardless of rating and stuff like that.
Fair.
I feel like you guys could come over and we could just be like, let's throw on the Courting album, and nobody would be mad. Other than the fact that it would only be 25 minutes, I'd have to get up and go change the album.
Change the album, yeah. Unless they release a deluxe version of the full trilogy.
Yeah, so that it would be. I was gonna say so this album, a deluxe version would be 36 minutes.
Wow.
Whoa.
I ain't got time for that.
But good album. I enjoyed this, and I'm excited to see how the trilogy all pans out.
Hell yeah.
3, 2, 1.